It's all good until it's not. It's one of those things. It's like, it's fine. Then all of a sudden it's not fine.
There's more people just not understanding the full picture of what's happening around the world, not understanding interest rates and all the rest. So we've got to ask the right questions and almost be like a doctor and diagnose people on what we're going to tell them and how we're going to put a plan in place.
We've got to be more than the middleman of the transaction. Like we have to be a counsellor, a friend. Having that empathy is huge.
And that's what I always say in terms of people saying, what's the difference between a lawyer and a conveyancer? Like, we don't want to get sued. Conveyancers might not care so much about getting sued because their liability is limited. Welcome to Stay Frosty. I'm Paul Snow from Snow Law Associates. Here I have our guest, Seb Pellegrino from Oslo Property, Bella and Curtis. Also, Bella, you're from Armstrong Creek Real Estate, are you?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Armstrong Real Estate. So, sister company of Oslo Property.
Yeah, nice. And Curtis?
And I'm Curtis Hoare. I work as a sales executive at Oslo Property, and I focus on inner Geelong for the team. And yeah, unfortunately for Seb, he has to put up with me all the time.
So tell me in general, like your real estate journeys, you've all come from different backgrounds. I know mostly country, regional Victoria. Just give me what attracted you to real estate in the first place, and what do you find with your personality works best?
Yeah, well, I'll kick it off. So Seb and I are both about half an hour apart. Didn't know each other beforehand because he was still in primary school when I left to go to real estate. But pretty much I moved down to Geelong originally from Euroa, so country Victoria, not even thinking about doing real estate. I went to uni, did exercise science degree, which sounds like it's actually a relatively common career progression for real estate, but wasn't what I wanted to do. But my auntie always did real estate. So, kind of something maybe in the back of my head subconsciously I didn't really think about doing and kind of just fell into it really. So footy coach happened to know Megan and just introduced us when I said I wasn't sure what I was doing for work and stuff, which was very nice. And yeah, somehow fluked the interview and ended up there. So yeah, kind of really fell into it. For my side, wasn't planned or anything like that.
Nice. And what do you find with your personality characteristics? What works best for you?
I'm pretty open book. Maybe I think people know how I'm feeling most of the time. So maybe I just believe that I'm just very upfront with people, and what you see is where you get, very honest. And I think I can generally get people to trust me pretty early because I know the way I go about things. So maybe that's what's helped me. I'd say that's probably the main thing.
Yourself, Bella?
Pretty similar path, to be honest. I'm also sort of country Vic, so Maryborough, Ballarat is where I'm originally from. I moved to Geelong similar to go to uni. Did commerce for only about 6 months until it was actually COVID at the time. So it was it was tough online, and I was sort of thinking I would span out and sort of decide what I wanted to do and narrow it down from there. Ended up deferring because I just wasn't sure if I was sort of vibing with it, and then ended up doing the real estate course in that sort of period, and then fell into the job with Armstrong, similar. And then, never went back. So I've, absolutely loved it. I think, like, funnily enough, similar to Kurt again, my old man's a livestock agent, and he's also done his, he's also got his real estate license. So sells like more rural sort of farms, and then similar type of job in the nature of selling sheep and cattle as well. So I think being around that early days as just watching his pathway and his lifestyle, I think it really gelled with me as well.
Nice.
And then personality wise, I think again similar. Like I think what you see is what you get with me as well. I think a lot of people in Geelong are probably regional, based as well. I find a lot of people have come from regional, so they kind of vibe with that sort of relatable sort of kind of personality type. And I think most of us are quite honest and young, and kind of wear our heart on our sleeve a little bit.
Yeah, nice. There is a sort of an innocence coming from country Vic when you're coming into a new industry. So I understand that.
Yeah.
And Seb, even though I was a metro boy, but that's
But you can tell.
Yeah, I'm like Hilly and Curtis. I wasn't smart enough to go to uni, so I was going to take the trade path. I was doing VCAL in year 12, and I always had my heart set on doing something trade based. And I grew up on the trail with my old man, pouring concrete and stuff. But
nice.
I actually had a school-based apprenticeship in year 12 as a fitter and turner. So I was doing that for a bit, and I found out that I hated it a lot when I was just very early on. So I quickly got out of that and went through year 12 sort of piss farting around, didn't really know what I was doing, and Sort of got to the end of year 12, and one of the boys that I was at school with was doing work experience with a real estate agency. So I was quick to reach out to them, and then ended up sort of starting from the bottom, essentially sweeping the floors, started at reception, worked my way up the property management ladder, did a bit of marketing as well. And then I knew someone in Shep who Josh McDonald, our director, had worked for, put us in contact, and then, yeah, the rest is history.
Beauty. Oh, good stuff, man. I find it's always a bit interesting when you get people from different backgrounds falling into a profession. I remember I did concreting for like a month, and then I saw 60-year-olds with their backs, and I'm like, I'm not going to end up like that. And went back to uni as a mature age to do law school. But I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to tick that box as a goal in my life. But then even when I did a couple of years of law, I dabbled into real estate and thought about going into commercial leasing and then sales reps, and I shadowed a few agents. And it's when you do shadow, you find out the amount of hustle and hard work that goes into unpaid work. And a lot of our stuff as lawyers, like, it's funny, like you see AI software come out where they're like, oh, don't miss out on a billable increment, or don't miss out on missing out on time or entering time for invoicing. And like, it's something that, and you know me, like I hate billing on an incremental basis. Like I will not invoice a client for a phone call, for example. It's invoicing on values-based work where there's actual work produced. But a lot of you guys do a lot of unpaid work in terms of, like, I feel like sometimes when my phone's blowing up during the day, and I had that day yesterday, I feel like a real estate agent because just like on the phone. And it's very hard for, I think, myself to create boundaries with clients. How do you find that vicarious anxiety and stress from just your phone blowing up? And how do you distill who's going to be a legitimate good faith purchaser and not just pulling your chain on a property?
It's I'll go first.
You take it around.
It's probably a hard one. And I think it's something like you work out over time, and you get a bit of a feeling towards it. There's never a way of knowing. Like sometimes you'll get someone come through and you think that they're probably a long way off, and then all of a sudden they're in a position where they're ready to do so, or people that are really genuine, but they're actually a lot further away. They don't even know where they're at sometimes. But I think in terms of determining, it's just like asking the right questions when it comes through, and they're dealing with the anxiety of like when you miss a phone call. It's something I'm probably still wrestling with myself as well. And when you're trying to progress your career, which I think most people are in, and I suppose the upside of real estate is there is no ceiling. So kind of everyone always is in that mode. Like there's never anything where you get to and you go, okay, I'm happy with that now. So it's probably hard and probably just something you got to wrestle with, I suppose. Yeah, as long as you're going to be in real estate, that there is a bit of anxiety and stuff when you're working with that. But I think in the age of instant gratification, it is really hard to be able to forward think. Because even if you do have someone who wants to sell straight away, like if you're talking about like payment and everything, if you're on the market for 4 to 6 weeks, which is a very normal campaign, you have a settlement of 2 to 3 months, like you're still 5-6 months away from getting paid. So it's just sort of having that foresight of what you do now will pay off, and just like, if you do the right things now, it'll pay off down the track as well. But yeah, it's definitely something that's not easily I didn't easily adopt anyway.
It's important to identify the demographic of clients, because it doesn't matter really what age now clients are in terms of that instant gratification mechanism. Because I know people in my generation who's like baby boomer generation or later, Generation X or millennials, where they'll still feel like they're entitled to an instant response. It's important to pick up on those cues to then give the service delivery to meet their expectations or set their expectations with them. How are you finding it?
I was literally going to say, I think setting expectations has been a huge one. I was actually chatting to our director, Megan, literally last night about how we operate really seasonal, and I think sort of, just in general in life as well, like knowing sort of what season you're in. Like if you're sort of in your earlier part of your career, really you have to kind of put in probably even more hours, like realistically. We kind of all operate in more of like this job is a lifestyle mentality anyway. But I think you can, the more you kind of do it and the more you adopt like a greater client base, you can kind of be a bit more flexible and have potentially more boundaries around when you answer the phone, and incorporating that, and then having times when you really don't answer the phone. So, I think like Kurt said, it's asking the right questions. But then with that, it's very hard sometimes as well. You almost need to give everyone the same sort of like treatment as though they're going to be a legitimate deal maker. And then kind of from there, the follow-ups, exactly. Make an assessment from there. But I think mainly for me, I think I'm pretty clear now after many years in it, kind of knowing where I'm at and where what season I'm in, like from now to June, just from now to July, end of financial year, kind of just in a real grind to try and sort of hit our KPIs before then.
Yeah. And how quick does Curtis want you to return his client calls?
Oh, like yesterday. No, he's pretty good with that sort of stuff. But Curtis is very like pedantic with stuff, which I think has been really good. Someone to sort of mentor me through the early stages of my career. But then again, also telling me when I should really back off. Like we're having the conversation yesterday where Curtis is saying you're probably working too much, and there has been times in the past where I've really burnt out and worked like long hours. You're doing 8 to 8 and like things just sort of get out of control, and then you're actually being less productive because you're more tired.
Yeah.
But he's been really good in mentoring me in that way. And I think now I'm sort of really starting to get the hang of that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I always had a rule of thumb. I took, the good and the bad from my mentors early on in my career, where if you got a call in the morning, you return it the same business day. If you get a call in the afternoon, you can return the call the next business day, but you make sure you let them know that you got the call. Whether it's a text saying, sorry, I missed your call. I find now with different demographics, there are different mediums of conversations. I get random clients who have known me in my career from 10 years ago who hit me up on Messenger saying, oh, hey, do you remember? I'm like, mate, this person's my age and hit me up on Messenger instead of just Googling me and emailing me, right? Like,
Unlike MySpace or...
yeah, it was so... MSN. Stuff like that.
It was
I see cute. No, I remember MySpace. I had a girlfriend that had MySpace. But I remember. I never really got into it. That was pre-Facebook, so that was the start of the whole generational thing. But yeah, I mean, I'll get the older demographic clients who have no patience whatsoever and just want a response. I had one telling me, complaining about a response from the other party saying it had been 7 weeks. I was like, well, you're talking about a big law practice that really look at you as a number, not as a client or someone who they want to deliver the perfect service to. They've got several big developer clients who take priority over you. And she, like she said to me, it was a funny analogy. She said, I did take the deli number in the line. And so then I remember the old ticket system. We used to take a deli number. I used to actually work in a deli. It was my first time. Listen, when I was 14 and 9 months, my mum was a wog. She said to me, you're working, that's it. So and my first job was at a deli. And they were Maltese and Calabrese, so go figure. I still got trauma from those days. So. But no, it was fun times. But yeah, when she said that, I'm like, I appreciate where you're coming from in the analogy, and I'm here working your best interest. All I can do is follow up, and that's the best we can do. In terms of the follow up, what do you find works best with conversion? Right, like I guess the reason what separates me apart from the other lawyers is the promptness of when I respond, how I respond, and the empathy, like, the principles we work on in terms of transparency and accountability and authenticity. At the end of the day, I'm very similar. Like, you get me and you get my authentic self. And I think that what works well for me in this market, because you're right, in Geelong, Torquay, regional areas, people want you for who you are. They don't want you to act as if you're just some cookie cutter real estate agent or cookie cutter lawyer or cookie cutter car salesman. They want you, and you get hired for the person you are. What works best for converting in terms of not just sales leads, but making sure that purchaser feels like they're heard and that you're taking their inquiry seriously? Yeah. Swap it up. We'll go to Seb.
I was going to say something else. Go first. I don't feel like I should answer it.
That's all right. Look, I think you're right in being prompt as well, and making sure that we're honest in providing information, being upfront, and all the touch points as well. Like, we've got the feedback several times that we feel like we're love bombing people in how much we're actually contacting them. So, I've like, it sounds a bit weird, but like the sort of things you need to do to stay front of mind as well, and especially on the other foot when they come back as a vendor, they're going to go, oh, Curtis followed me up X amount of times, or Bella Hill followed me up this much, and really painted the picture for me. So if you're doing that sort of thing, your service is sort of second to none. And like, even as I said, with our touch points, like before an appraisal, there's so many little things that we'll do prior to that appraisal to make sure they know who we are, they know who's come through the door. We'll text and call them maybe 2 or 3 times before we even get there, those sort of things. Yeah, they really go a long way, very small, but yeah.
Oh, those touch points are important, aren't they? So
I think texts are a big one that I've found are very non-intrusive for people, and they can get back in their own time. And then, like, as you said, if at least you're acknowledging their contact. That's kind of like, for example, if we get a contact on a Sunday and maybe you're not working on the Sunday or you're at a family event, like just shooting a text back being like, I'll call you regarding this or I'll get back to you regarding this. Like they feel heard, even if you're not addressing it at the time.
Yeah.
And then it's funny, my partner was actually going through the process of buying late last year, and it's crazy the amount of people, like agents that he was reaching out to, and there's just a lack of follow-up. Like it's crazy. I think there was one agent in particular that he'd mentioned had then gave him the time to ask him what he was looking for, what suburbs, what budget he's sort of hoping to sort of stick around. And then from those follow-up questions, he was being sent properties and like, it's very basic 101 fundamental real estate, but it's those basics that people remember. Yeah. So it was interesting to see it from his side as a customer or a client.
It's funny when you have that insight into your own industry and then you have the experience from your own industry. I mean, I had a lawyer recently for myself in a commercial dispute, and you know, the typical hypocritical thing with a lawyer has a lawyer, right? You never do your own legal work for yourself because it's just a no, you're too emotionally invested.
Yeah.
But it's funny having an insight into, as you said, into my own industry in terms of their billing practices, their communication styles. Like lawyers are always risk averse, but clients get lawyers to go into bat for them. They don't want to hear the risk averse. Like, yes, you can tell them like this is where it stands by the law, but you've hired me to go in to act in your best interest and this is what I'm going to do for you. But then having my own lawyers and then hearing how they give the advice, I'm like, I really know why people hate lawyers. And like, I've always got this analogy of level of hate.
Yeah.
And it's like politician, council worker, lawyer.
Yeah. That was exactly how I was feeling about my
real estate.
Then it goes, and then it goes real estate. And
no wonder people hate us.
Yeah. And then I've got car salesman at the very end.
Yeah.
Car salesman used to be the top when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because everyone hated car salesmen because they were the liars. And now they're actually getting a good rep. Like they actually got a good brand image. What are you finding works best?
I suppose for me, I'll look at it 3 different ways. So I think you've got obviously your buyers and then your potential clients and then obviously your clients. And I think sort of to Bella's point before, like it's all about expectations as well. So with buyers, it's like essentially when you're like speaking to them, setting up the next call. So I like with buyers, I'll follow up on the Saturday, but I'll say, look, if I don't think or I've had a really good chance to chat with them, and I'll just say, look, normally I'd call on the Saturday. Do you need more time? I'll call you Monday. So setting the conversation up.
Nice.
With potential clients, it's about building trust. So calling them when I say I'm going to call them, because if I'm doing that from the start, then I'm building trust that down the track, all those little things add up. And then when there's clients, like Megan said something, our director, which always resonated with me, and that was, if your client's contacting you, you're not contacting him enough.
Yeah.
So basically just being, if they're gonna message me, making sure I'm ahead of that and providing the updates as well. Because same thing, like you just need to have the conversation from the start. Like, how much do you want to hear from me? Because there's no point giving updates if I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So as a vendor, like myself now having experienced that, I'm like, these things I want to know about, these things I don't. So yeah, every client's different, just making sure you basically cater to them. And that's what will help you with setting up for each different person.
Yeah, to that point, that was probably a key moment in my career where I probably leveled up a lot. Was kind of, I think sales agents naturally like to talk and talk too much sometimes.
So I've got you on the podcast.
Yeah, so we're doing that today, regardless of that. But like we can often talk too much. So I feel like just if you switch the mentality to being way more questions based, that's what's really helped me. Like if you let the client do the talking, then you're going to find out so much more about what their needs are, how often they want to be communicated with, like where they're at. Because some people who walk through the door and they're not ready to buy for 6 months, they don't want to be contacted every single week.
Yeah, of course.
Likely. But if someone's like pre-approval's running out in 2 weeks, they probably want to be contacted twice a week. So I think just knowing and asking the right questions to pre-qualify either your seller or your buyer is key.
I think those soft skills are extremely important because we, at law school, we actually have to get taught how to do client interviewing. And a lot of it is learning on the job. So when I was studying, I was working at Legal Aid. So I literally had the best training for client interviewing because I was dealing with those high-end, low socioeconomic demographic clients who had like a lot of stress and anxiety. I remember one of my client interviews, someone went through a schizophrenic episode. Only happened to me once, but there was no lawyer in there. It was just me and another clerk. It was the most awkward feeling I had internally because it was literally like anything could happen here. And she had this thick Russian accent and like innocent woman. But like as a junior, you're really going through the mental loads now. I genuinely, like these days with clients and their expectations, I generally start questioning, do clients think Saturdays and Sundays are business days? Because a client will say to me, I emailed you 2 weeks ago, and it's like, you email me on a Saturday. Like the business day for me doesn't start till Monday. So like I was similar to you guys when I was younger, junior, going hard, doing those hours. And admittedly now I'll do those hours in spurts, but I always come back to the reason why I do this is to have a work-life balance. I've got 3 kids. My priority is also as a father and a husband to those 3 kids. So yes, my clients get my absolute attention, but as soon as, 6, 7 o'clock hits on a business night, I'm not picking up the phone. I'm not answering emails, because if you email me on a Saturday, it doesn't mean I'm emailing you first thing on a Monday, because unfortunately as solicitors, if we set up the wrong expectations, you guys probably get this as well. If you set that expectation early that you're available whenever they call, or you'll immediately return their call, then they start taking advantage of that. And unfortunately with the billing model that I have, I'm billing every phone call, because especially in family law, when I worked in family law back in the day, clients would complain about their bills. And I'm like, well, don't call so much, because you're getting invoiced every call you make. If clients know they're not getting invoiced like that, they'll call. But there's a lot of unpaid work that you guys do in that regard. How many times, like now, obviously you mentioned earlier, there's that grind from here to July and to financial year. Everyone's really sorting out their financial positions. The cost of living crisis, the scarcity that's getting produced on mass media about the petrol, interest rates going up. Now the building and construction industry is going to suffer. A lot of people are going to hold on to their money instead of investing. Are you still finding the motivation for investment in regional Victoria strong?
Yes, in the short answer. I feel like because of the strong price growth that Brisbane, Sydney, WA areas have had, that Melbourne and Geelong have kind of lagged a little bit for the last few years. So I've found a huge uptake in buyers advocates acting on behalf of interstate investors who are kind of targeting this area. And even I don't think we've seen like a direct impact on the confidence just yet, like locally. I've actually seen people either trying to lock things in before things get more uncertain towards potentially the back end of the year. So I feel like right now it's still some sort of level of stability with the unknown to come.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're maybe yet to see a bit of a lag on that. But so far it's been even people who are currently pre-approved with their current pre-approval who may get reassessed in the next phase of interest rate hike. I think people are trying to lock something in while they've still got that borrowing capacity. So on the particularly in my sort of focus area being 3217, I haven't seen it make a huge impact just yet.
I've sort of seen a slight decrease, sort of more our area than yours. Obviously, we're various different markets at any point in time, but I was doing a whole heap of buy calls this morning, and it was more people just not understanding the full picture of what's happening around the world, not understanding interest rates and all the rest. So I think it sort of goes back to the part where we've got to ask the right questions and almost be like a doctor and diagnose people on like what we're going to tell them and how we're going to put a plan in place. Even with some buyers, like I was talking to a lady today, needs to sell an indented heads, wants to buy in Belmont. And we saw the case of like how we're going to get her there and understanding what timelines work out best for her, where, when the interest rates go up, obviously borrowing capacity will be affected, but helping her understand what's actually happening and what these things mean, because I think things get lost in the media a lot of the time and everyone gets scared and goes, oh my God, the property market's going down the toilet or whatever it is, but realistically it's not as big as a deal as everyone thinks. So it's just like making sure people understand what's actually happening.
Yeah, I think what's important for people to remember is that the property market is one of the cornerstones of the government's GDP and the coffers of the politicians, which is why we pay such high stamp duty costs. And you're right, the markets in Brisbane and New South Wales, I mean, with the way I've seen it in property law, in conveyancing especially, because I take a broad-based perspective on trends, and when I'm looking at contracts, I'm seeing a lot of smart investor clients going out to more regional. They're going to Ballarat, Sebastopol, out that way, because they want to get a higher capital yield growth, but then their rental returns are lower and you're buying in a low socioeconomic area. And there are pockets of Geelong you can still get great value. And it depends completely on medium price, because people are priced out of Torquay, so they have to look at the 3217 market. They have to look at the Belmont or the North Geelong area to find value for money. But I think this is why also buyer's advocates are becoming a lot more important. AI can only take you so far with the input you're putting in. I've done my own AI. I've used it for research on market prices for me looking at commercial properties and buying under an SMSF. Have you found it being an interrupter or more of an innovator in the market to help you guys get over the line in terms of people not just utilizing AI, but then I know buyers advocates are starting to play a more important role. Are they allowing the transition or efficiency in contract negotiations, or are they becoming a bit of a hindrance?
I think buyers advocates have been sort of our main client over the last few months. I know especially for Bella, there was a period there where Armstrong was doing 60% of their sales through buyers agents, but they've been really predominant in the recent market. I know it's probably going to be hard to get a gauge on what that's going to look like in the next few weeks. Obviously, the data's always quite delayed when it comes to property because what law, if the interest rates go up or whatever it is now, there's a bit of a delay, as we were talking about on the phone the other day. It's almost 3 months sometimes. But yeah, I think definitely buyers agents have sort of changed the way that a lot of people are looking at investing and stuff these days because they're doing like a majority of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And, more often than not, we're getting a new buyer's brief from a buyer's agent almost every day. And it's becoming a bit of a joke amongst all the agents, like getting a call from someone you never heard of from, Sydney or wherever it is.
Give me a pun. You got a pun for me for buyers agents or not yet?
Got nothing.
What I've found as well, because in COVID, there was literally no negotiating. It was either take it or walk out. And I think the Ring of Steel had that effect on regional Victoria because we were able to say, well, if you come from Melbourne, we know you're basically jail in a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
And we're allowed to walk around. So I had a lot of people from Melbourne. I experienced not hatred, but a lot of anxiety and envy from people from Melbourne post-COVID because they realised that we actually had it quite good. But yeah, there was literally no negotiating on contracts. I'm finding now you've got compliance check conditions, license agreements conditions are always a part of it. But we're seeing a plethora of conditions being bargained into by buyers advocates. One of the worst ones I saw was where if we didn't bring it up to the Residential Tenancies Act standards, the client could get a $3,000 reduction on the purchase price. Sales agent slipped it in, didn't make my client aware of it, didn't make me aware of it. Client had to sign. Thank God I'm in a big network where we've got safety audit people. Rick Safety Audits is one of them that I go out and use. We had them out at the client's thing. They were happy in the end, but I'm like, you're a sales agent. You should be acting in the client's best interest, not your best interest to get the deal over the line because you do have those. I mean, how do you identify that a buyer's agent's genuine or is just purely transactional in nature?
I think it's probably just like, again, asking the right questions. And yeah, I would always refer to the conveyancer because it's not our domain. Like you want to make sure that everyone's across it and that from a legal standpoint, it makes sense. So yeah, I think having a good relationship with the conveyancer, calling them at the very minimum, if not emailing, I would be anyway.
I've seen some terrible conditions in Canberra. Terrible conditions.
Always from a buyer's agent.
I'm just like, how did this even get in there? And I'm like,
I wouldn't sleep at night. Like it's too big of a deal.
Like even now, what I'll do is the initial contract review, like video call, and I'll say, listen, when this is filled out, send it to me again to have a look at. Because I'm even getting contracts that don't have vendor statements signed, and I'm like, that's basic, guys. Get the thing signed, because otherwise, there's no point in even me looking at this. And then trying to get the deal done in the same week. I'm like, that's not going to happen if you can't even give me a signed vendor statement. Like if I'm asking then for contract variations, what are you guys doing? Like if I see a lawyer's contract and it has those penalty provisions about, varying the contract, extending a finance condition, I'm like, this is all conveyancing parlance. Like this is all common conveyancing conventions. If I need a finance extension, why am I going to pin my client $220 because you have to do an extra email? It's like, get rid of that condition. This is like the wild, wild west of conveyancing in terms of the service delivery. That's why one of my sayings is there's no more truism than you get value for money or you get what you pay for. If you want to go cheap on conveyancing on a $700-800 million home, you're going to get that delivery of service. Absolutely. If you're going to pay what market rate is, which is about, $1,500 to $2,000 around Geelong, then you're going to get a good service. Someone who's been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years. How are you finding the conveyancing translate all the conversations with conveyancers and buyers agents? I found it good.
I think it's the same as like any other industry, like when we talk about lawyers and agents having bad, like real estate agents having bad reps, it's a small percentage that ruin a fair bum.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like they're the ones you hear all the stories about. It's a small percentage. I think the overwhelming majority has been really good, and I think what really helps if you've got a good conveyancer, a good buyer's agent on their side, and then on our side you've got a good agent and a good lawyer or conveyancer. It's so easy. Like it just makes
You can tell. It's just
it does. It's
just
just
a smooth
it's just seamless. And like I think the market, like circling back to the market we're coming into now, buyers have a sounding board that doesn't have a vested interest on the vendor side as to why you should buy is so important. Like obviously over the last however long, like Victorian property, Australian property has been a pretty safe asset class to go into. I think where people get a bit of, I suppose, like uncertainty is what really gets people. People they'd rather know like the market's going to drop 20% and they're probably still more likely to buy than if they go, oh, what was it? Is it going to drop 10%? Is it going to drop 30%? Like we don't know what it's going to do. It's the uncertainty that gets people. So having a bit of a sounding board from them, as I said, the leverage is what scares people because they're playing with cash that they don't actually have in their bank.
Yeah.
But if they've got that to go, yes, this is a good way to go, it makes it so much easier for us because we're not just trying to like. I don't think we're just trying to push them to sell. Because I've bought a property recently. Like, I think it's such a good time to buy at the moment. Like yes, there might be some muddy waters ahead, but like typically it performs pretty well. And having your money sitting in a bank at the moment, if inflation's at 5%, it's probably not the best return on investment anyway. Even if a market does dip, whether you're in shares or property. So
with COVID too, like the media scaring people thinking it was going to be the biggest crash in the property market, and it ended up doing the complete opposite and growing like mad. So I think I agree, and I think like probably even to your point before, AI has actually, I think it's a great thing, like in transparency for both buyers and sellers. Like I genuinely think the more information a buyer has and a seller has about the surrounding comparable properties, the median house price, the median time on market, all those sorts of things are only helping us.
Yeah. Well, I think it always comes down to the user. Like I had this one of my role models said to me, if you're an alcoholic but you're a good person, you turn into a better person because alcohol enhances that personality. But if you're an angry person and you're an alcoholic, you become an even worse person.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so I think AI it amplifies the user and how they use that information to their advantage. I've had clients use AI on the other side and literally make my client's case for them by using AI. And you can tell there's all the headings and everything and
the bold,
all the dashes.
and
I'm like, and I'm just like, you literally just made out our case, which is what we were talking about anyway. Like you literally plugged in my letter, asked for a response, and it gave you the answers that we are seeking from you anyway.
Yeah.
And so when that matter goes to court, it's literally a solid win for the client who had bought a horse. We deal with some interesting matters. We deal with some interesting cats.
That was like when you buy a car and it's a lemon. Is that actually?
Yeah. So dogs. So dogs only recently under the Family Law Act, or pets recently under the Family Law Act, have been recognised as individual identities or beings. Otherwise, horses, dogs, cats are known as chattels. They're just property. So the horse is like a car. Like when says you bought it, says you bought it.
I was looking at like as in saying like a horse is like
that's what I thought.
Like a property or something.
No, literally
Literally
a horse. And like I said, we get interesting cases and interesting clients that will use AI to certain advantages, and I'll get clients using AI to verify what I've been saying. Like you can get AI to review a contract. I've had AI review a contract for me, but I've seen exactly where it's gone wrong, and I'm like, if I'm going to utilize AI, I've still got to check it anyway. So I'm going to be doing it myself.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to rely on the data. We've seen cases go to court where family lawyers have used AI and cited cases that just don't exist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, as a solicitor, like you don't even deserve to have a practice certificate if you're literally going to submit something to a judge, a federal court judge, mind you, who's appointed under Chapter 3 of the Constitution. So this, all judges are serious, but they're Commonwealth judges, and you're going to submit like an affidavit or a submission, and you haven't even verified or checked your own cases. Like, what are you doing in this profession? There are no shortcuts. And there's this saying in law now that's crept up in conveyancing, especially, that near enough is good enough. Like in our profession, near enough is never good enough. I think you're finding that in your industries as well, that clients have that high expectation. Near enough is never good enough, and they're unforgiving. And like everyone loves posting their wins. What are some of the things that you look back on and reflect on, like, oh God, or cringe and go, how the hell did I get away with that? Or what was I doing back then?
We're pointing out mistakes here, are we?
Well, I can.
Curtis would have a list of mine.
Are we naming for each other? Or are you doing-
Get your notes put in.
Oh, listen,
Yeah,
I'll share
nah.
one. I share one because again, I work off the principle of accountability. I'll share one early today where technically it can be construed as committing professional negligence. I remember being a junior lawyer and asking my principal for help on a conveyancing matter caused an $8,000 loss to a client. We ended up compensating the client. So no matter what, I always remember you have to make with the client, right? So if, for example, if I miss a settlement and then our client's penalized, I'm wearing that penalty. That client's not suffering. I own up to my mistakes, right? And in that instance, yes, I put my hand up and said I stuffed up. I was quite junior. So, and a lot of things in life you learn by your mistakes, and conveyancing is very process orientated and you have to be diarising your dates and meeting deadlines. So I've got really high expectations around how my matters are run in terms of getting back to, because it's a small profession in Geelong. So if you burn your bridges with one conveyancer, they're going to remember you and they're going to sting you back. I've done it to lawyers around here where they've stung me or done the wrong thing or being arrogant or even misogynistic against my female staff. And I'm like, I'll remember this. I'll keep this in the memory bank. And when you want a license agreement, you'll be paying full rate. I won't be waiving any fees. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So where do you guys find you look back on things and you go, oh, crap, like,
I reckon the big one I really weighs on me is like when I go into an appointment someone that I've got a really good relationship with, and I assume that I'll be working with them, and you probably just, I don't know, maybe just too trusting. Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, complacent, and I'm like, oh, I'll do this, but I don't do one or two things part of my normal process, which stuff I've been guilty of. I'm sure I do that once every few months or whatever. You think you've got something, and then I'm like, I would normally do this, but just because we've got such a good relationship, I don't do one or two things, then you end up losing it. So I think whenever I do something where I know I haven't done 100% of what I can do, if I lose one and I'm like, I know I've put everything out there, I've been myself, I've showed them the process, I've done everything, then I'm happy to let that stuff go.
Yeah.
But it's when I'm just like, oh, I could have done one or two more things, and then I'm like, that was just one that I could have potentially had.
yeah,
So,
I'm always on high alert when a client's edifying me before I've actually delivered, because I'm like, they've now set this expectation in their head that Paul Snow can do this. And I'm like, I can't let them down now.
yeah.
And if I do, I feel absolutely gutted, because I'm like, I know that in their head, they're like, oh, he was the best lawyer since sliced bread. And then, if I don't meet one of the expectations, if I don't meet one of those expectations, then I feel like I've let them down personally, not professionally, but personally. Professionally, I know I've done the best of my job to deliver that result. And some of those things, you get some of those really solid wins in conveyancing. It's funny because I thought I was going to be a family lawyer until I had kids, but then you do have some success in family law, but in family law, it's never a good result when there's kids involved, and especially it's civil litigation in a very emotive circumstance, and most of the people end up in court have some form of family violence or sexual abuse, or there's some sort of narcissistic behavior there, right? And I'm like, there is no good results in family law. Everyone's
Heavy stuff.
and they hate the lawyers. I'll tell family law clients that come to me now, don't go to court, put your money in your pocket. And I'll even say to some blokes, they're like, yeah, but she's getting $100,000. I'm like, that money's going to your kids.
That's it.
Where do you think it's going? It's your kids' education and so on. So at the end of the day, it's quite acrimonious, which is why I got out of family law completely. I will still help clients through that. This is the 4-stage process they go through court. This is what you're going to experience. And you're going to spend at least $50,000 on a lawyer. And this is what I feel like they don't get told, like that transparency point you mentioned earlier. If that lawyer's not telling them it's going to cost you 30 to 50 minimum before you see the inside of a courtroom, essentially, then they're just snake oil salesmen, because what they're doing is they're saying, I'll put $5,000 in trust, I'll put $10,000 in trust. Next minute, you're $30,000 in the hole and you're emotionally committed to the matter, and you can't give it up because you've already spent that much, right? Then you get to the trial and you've spent 50 to 100, and the barristers are saying, well, we've got a 5-day trial that's going to cost you just as much as what you've just spent. And this is maybe after 12 months, 2 years of litigation. No one wants to go through that. You guys see the forefront of that as well in terms of family breakups and sales, because I do believe that family law results into the sale of the matrimonial home to pay the lawyers. And then you've got a single mum who's trying to rent to this market, which is just ridiculous, right? Which is, for me, ethically, that's why I got out of family law litigation, because I don't want to support an industry that has that effect, cause and effect. How are you finding it with those sort of negotiating transactions? Are you filing any sort of vicarious trauma from that? or do you find competing demands and how to deal with separate communication models, or are you seeing a lot of it in this market where there's a lot of financial stress?
Yeah, I've probably seen more and more financial sales or related to, like a family law sort of situation. I think, like, as you sort of alluded to, we've got to be more than the middleman of the transaction. Like, we have to be a counsellor, a friend, like an advisor, without taking on too much of the emotional burden of it. But obviously, having that empathy is huge. And I think that's probably one thing, to an earlier point, that AI will never obviously be able to compete with is having that degree of being able to be a bit of a chameleon depending on the situation and how soft you can go, how hard you can go. If it's an investor, you can probably be a bit more direct.
Yep.
But I'm finding that, it's definitely a balancing act with that. What would you say in town?
Yeah, I've been pretty, like, I have dealt with a few, don't get me wrong, but I've been pretty lucky. Like, I haven't really had any nasty ones, which I'm sure happen. But I suppose just like knowing how to communicate, knowing if they communicate and what the best way. So it's same thing, like, it's done, like, we do a lot of the same stuff. We're definitely not rocket scientists at the end of the day, but like just setting the expectations, knowing how they want to be communicated with, make sure that if, like, you're sending the message to both, like I've always been like instructed, just make sure they're both getting the same message and they both know exactly what's going on. So, because you, like, even with couples that are together, like sometimes you'd assume stuff gets passed on and it doesn't. Like when we sold my place, I kept forgetting to tell Kate stuff that was happening because Steve can call me and tell us what happened. So just making sure everyone is across everything and there's no confusion at all. So with a lot of them, if they're on really good terms, we'll create like group chats, which we do for all our vendors as well. So then it's like, it's all there to see. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just the same message to each other as well, just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
There's way too many WhatsApp group chats these days.
There's a lot of WhatsApp group chats, So
is that control?
Way too many.
Yeah. But I think it's just as long as you make sure everyone is updated across everything, it makes it easy in my experience. But I've been pretty lucky.
And like you said, with the whole cost side of things, like I've found the more I give them at the start in terms of what they might be up for is actually they're actually much more comfortable to proceed with you, even though you might be the only agent telling them you're up for 20 grand here in total in costs. Well, they actually appreciate that. Like it sounds, like, oh, if I proceed with her, we're up for 20 grand. But if another agent who's just trying to get the business over the line or get them to sign on the dotted line isn't telling them that, they're like, well,
we can't afford to be sitting there waiting.
We
can't be hoping for a certain price. Like, we actually need to know the realistic figures. Cause it's a good one where you can't, like, you can't, but it's very hard for other agents to buy the business over you by going high price, low fees, and then they win the business.
That's it.
So they want you to be realistic and honest. So they can be good ones for us.
I actually just I had one that I took over recently from that was on the market previously for about a year, and that client has just said, like, because I just said, oh, look, would you be open to staging the property? And that was something that they were like, yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking, well, this property's been vacant. Like,
why didn't you offer that earlier?
Yeah, I was thinking, well, maybe like they're really not gonna go for it because like it's previously not been staged. It might be a hard one.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Whatever you think, Bella. And I was like, well, that's the first thing we need to do. Like 100% it's worth the investment. Like, let's get this property looking great so that we can achieve what you need. So I think, it's like, I sort of went into it with a preconceived idea that maybe they're going to be super against it given it's already been so long and it wasn't previously in there. But I think it's really just like, they can see when you're being genuine as well. Like if you're saying, if this was my mum's property, I would do this. And you're telling them out of their best interest, they can feel that.
It's also about lived experience. Like I can see when clients are shopping around, and I'll be very honest, like I've got a set cost disclosure where like, this is the cost, this is fixed, and this is what, like, it's just a massive description of the role that we undertake.
Yeah.
I remember as a junior, I used to try and really sell them on it, even though they're literally like just making an online inquiry, basically like, oh, hey, what's your cost? And I know they're shopping around. I've probably lost, genuinely after doing the contract review, I've lost 3 clients in 3 years. And even one recently who had an urgent, and it's always Friday doing an auction contract review and on an auction. And we actually
Don't think of
You've
it.
been good with these for us.
well, it's a Fridays. It's funny because Fridays now coaching my son's soccer team at the Surf Coast Football Club at Torquay.
So the Suns.
No, it's just soccer. That's
soccer.
Yeah, not
Sorry.
football, soccer. I say football because that's the correct terminology, right?
Yeah, true.
Here we go.
Enjoy it, mate.
Yeah, we're in country.
Don't say. I'm a coach now. I'm going to say already. So I'm coaching with a mate that I went to high school with. He's come up here, and funnily enough, our kids are best mates, and we worked at the deli together, right, in Greenswater. So
Circle back.
we've ended up in Torquay years later, and we worked when we were teenagers and we were going to high school, right? And our wives get on, our kids are like kindred spirits, and it's a really beautiful thing to see. But you know me, like I say, Fridays 4 to 5 are my busiest hours because I'm doing contract reviews. And now the beauty of people coming on board with technology and DocuSign and everything, like I'm doing video calls at home on Teams before they're attending the auction on the Saturday. I had one recently that I'd lost, and I had an inkling I was going to lose it because the agent said, listen, I think they have their own conveyancer, but they just need, and I said, listen, I'm happy to chop you out. I'll do the contract review. Obviously, I file note everything so I cover my liability in terms of the advice given. But it was so interesting, this contract, because there was an potential adverse possession claim over the back boundary that had resolved by way of deed of settlement. And there was a non-survey based survey done. I don't know how that worked, but it said you can't rely on these boundaries in this survey. And I'm like, that's the whole point of getting a survey, right? And I was surprised when they had appointed me, but it was funny, the question that I got at the end of the call, and they ended up going to their conveyancer, but in the contract, the agent said, hey, you got it. Didn't work out. But in the advice call, they didn't say how much your conveyancing costs. She said, oh, do you do wills? And I was like, okay, you've definitely got your own conveyancer, because if you asked me to do wills even before we started this like legal relationship, then you're just trying to butter me up to say I'll do my wills with you, right? But yeah, all of our contract reviews are thorough and done before they're signing. And that's why I'm finding now that people are trying to rush through the deals and details aren't being put in contracts. Like I'm finding even recently, not just the conveyancing penalty provisions that you see in contracts about nominating and that, they're not even including the definition of goods with the land. And it's one of the most key components of a contract, particulars, even though it's just a general description, fixtures and fittings, window furnishings and all that of a general nature as inspected, right? They're not even including that. And I'm like, it's just lazy conveyancing. Like, you're appointing, like, I'm like, what are you doing paying conveyancer $770 to produce a contract that's not actually doing the job that it should? And because you can even have excluded items in there. You know, you can have, I had one recently saying excluding the timber block and behind the shed. So, you know, we make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's. And that's what I always say in terms of people saying, oh, you know, what's the difference between a lawyer and a conveyancer? Like, we don't want to get sued. Conveyancers might not care so much about getting sued because their liability is limited. We have professional indemnity insurance, so we've got the deeper pockets. That's the main answer.
It's all good until it's not. It's one of those things. It's like, it's fine, then all of a sudden it's not fine.
And conveyancing is one of the highest areas where we get lawyer complaints to our insurer. They'll produce stats and they give a lot of CPD content because they don't want to pay out an insurance. And so it's family law and conveyancing that are two biggest areas for insurance claims for lawyers because they don't cross their T's and dot their I's. What's the turnaround? What do you think should be the expected turnaround from a contract review to a signed deal?
Oh, look, what have we been like?
15 to 20 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, I was going to say.
He usually it's a Marcus drive-through.
We always usually allow about a day or two, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
If something's getting done on a Friday, I know I've called you up at like a 5 p.m. and you're like, I'll be working till 7, like I'll get it done. But like, I think you've been very good that way. But if it's something that comes in on a Friday, it's usually like we're not seeing it back till Monday or Tuesday. So it's a few days, and we got to understand you guys have to actually read through a whole contract. Like we're just skimming past it, filling in the little fake spaces. But yeah, on the topic of chattels, like you even ask Curtis, like if we got to be on top of those, he had to buy a bar fridge a little while ago for a client.
Oh, that's
Oh, really?
Thanks to the boys there. I was away and then come back and I'd go, by the way, you got to pay for bar fridge.
Oh,
So-
no.
I think I was involved in that.
Maybe, yeah. It was like, and they were amazing people as well. So it was just something, it was just bad timing. The builder took it. They didn't know that I was taking it. And anyway, it was fine. They were good clients, happy to do it. I wasn't happy to do it, but for them, it was good. It was like worthwhile. But it's just one of those things where you've got to be onto it. And you can ask Seb, I'm very particular about things. I like things done a certain way. So I can appreciate when like you need a couple of days to do stuff as well. Yeah. So you rather stuff done right because that's quicker. When if you do it slow and I do it right, it's quicker than stuffing up 5 times.
100%. No, I was just going to say, it's probably, again, just goes back to setting the expectation.
Yeah.
Like, if we've had an offer accepted on a Friday or we're looking to have contracts signed ASAP. It's probably just saying to the client, look, typically this takes 1 to 2 business days. We're probably looking like having a signed contract by Tuesday.
Yeah.
And just like anything before that is a bonus. Like,
Yeah.
kind
It's
of
always
preparing
red
for worst
flags for
case.
me for agents who are like, oh no, you can rely on the calling off period. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a penalty. And not everyone knows there's a penalty payable and there's a calling off. I had recently where we gave the advice, and I've got it in my advice, and I've actually just changed the font to red. So it's brought to their attention where the client didn't read that there's a penalty for calling off.
Yep.
And I'm like, if you're not actually going to read my advice, there's no point in me even putting it together anyway. Number one. But number two, like, that's a red flag. If I had an agent call me yesterday saying, oh, you know, you've got the finance clause condition anyway. If you terminate, you have, because one of my little hacks, and I'll be honest with you guys, is I'll tell the client, don't pay the full 10% deposit until you're unconditional. Like, even if you're subject to a building and pest, pay a good faith deposit of 5 grand. It just shows that you're good faith. There's some consideration there. Keep the 10% because at the end of the day, if you have to terminate, you can terminate and keep the 10. You know what I mean? There's only 2.5 grand up for grabs if the vendor wants to fight. The vendor won't fight. I was speaking to the agent about this. He goes, oh, no, you've got the finance clause. I said, yeah, but I don't want to have arguments with stupid conveyancers because I've had too many arguments in my career, and they're not all stupid, but just those ones that, like you said, and it is a minority that ruins it for the majority. And, you know, like, you know, I'll call out Easy Link Conveyancing because I've had so many punch-ons with them about, okay, we've terminated the contract. You're not releasing deposit. There's no reason to hold on to it. The client's validly terminated. Why are we arguing here? Like, you're literally wasting energy and time. Like, if I had to charge per email that I did, like, I feel like people just dump emails as a to-do list. Like, they're like, if I send this email, it's no longer my problem. I've delegated the issue. And I see that in my inbox. It's literally just like an inquiry.
Sit in the back.
Yeah.
I had one today asking for bail and water BPay references from a vendor's conveyancer. I went and got it out of their contract. I'm like, it's already in your, like, I didn't say it. I'm thinking to myself, it's already in your contract. Like, you were lazy enough to email me instead of going to your own contract and finding the details that you already had. I'm like, there's bigger things to fight over. But I think that's what puts me on high alert. What are some of the things that put you guys on high alert with clients in terms of whether they're genuine, whether they're just trying to smooth you over in a deal? Like,
Too good to be true.
yeah.
If it's too good to be true, usually is, I think, like, as soon as it's all too easy, like it says with buyer's agents, there's easy, like, and then there's like smooth. Like, if it's too easy, then I'm like alarm bells. I'm like, okay, there's like, I'm just very cautious there. So I think that's my main red flag when it's way too easy. And then I'm like, oh, obviously you do all the thorough checks and everything you normally do, but that's what I'm just like, just extra particular about that because it's too easy. There's usually a reason why.
Yeah.
Fair.
I would just always, like, I literally had the conversation just before we came here with a vendor and just said, look, don't crack the champagne until we have a signed contract. Like, yes, we've got this offer. Yes, it's looking like progressing. I've never dealt with them before. And just setting up, again, preparing for worse, hoping for the best, I think is what I try to
That's a good one, actually.
kind of base it off. Yeah.
No, look, I think I'm very, very similar to Curtis. We actually had it recently with one of the properties that we pretty much had sold twice over, and it fell through both times due to a building inspection.
Oh,
Yeah. Just making sure that you got all your T's crossed and I's dotted. Sort of thing.
Because there was actually, and this just come to mind, there was one that there was genuinely, like, it was early on in my career. I remember it was like too good to be true, and it was fine. But like, it was actually during COVID, and that was when we were like seeing so many properties bought sight unseen. And I remember this lady calling me up from, she was from Byron Bay. So this just like, it all just added to it. Like, just called me up, really chilled. She's from Byron Bay. We had a property on the market that was something like 800 to 880. And then she'd bid previously outbid on another one where she'd bid 750. And then she's said, oh, there's one on the market 8 to 880. Do you reckon 880 would get that one done? And I was like, let me have a chat with the vendor and I'll come back to you on it. And then the vendor was just like absolutely over the moon, like, take it now, like, let's get it on a contract. And I was just like, okay, yep. Called her back. She's like, oh, amazing. Yep, let's go ahead. And then she came down from Byron Bay at settlement and she was stoked with the house. And I was like,
wow.
That deal, like, I just was like, is she real?
Yeah.
Is she like, I was, so that, like, there's that too, where it's genuinely so easy. So
I remember we had one early on when we first met each other, and there was that really exclusive property that had 2 Airbnbs and an infinity pool, and there was that guy. Do you remember that one?
The one with so I do remember the house. Yes.
Yeah, and the guy full
With Josh.
ghosted, like
Yep.
put in a
That
massive
was the
offer.
option, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't an
Nah.
auction. It was did on a few properties to a few different agents.
Yeah.
I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was like high-end exclusive, like ruined the whole marketing campaign because it literally
Was that the record
went-
price one?
went under contract,
Mm.
and then the guy ghosted me. I was calling him flat chat, didn't pay the deposit,
I do remember.
nothing. Yeah,
I remember hearing about this. That was a record price for the street, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
That was
It still was anyway.
Yeah.
But it was just it was one of those things where
ridiculous.
come through and
The house was nuts.
So
too.
he ended up not existing.
No, he just left. He just took off.
We're,
just
yeah,
never-
we're checking IDs now for that reason. We get
Yeah.
like full identification and stuff. I think especially once you get to the pointy end of the negotiations, like until you, as Hilly said, until you get that contract
signed,
signed
yeah.
off and everything's like,
And even then,
So
it's
done.
like, do they call off or they not call off?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
there's always that umming and ahhing, especially now with so many contracts with conditions, like so many subject to sale contracts.
Yeah.
Are around. Like, I've got a client selling 2 properties, so that subject to sale condition includes both properties before they go unconditional, and then they want a license agreement to go in, and they're actually getting over the line. I'm like, again, too easy, right? And I'm thinking to myself, there's too much things that are fraught with danger. So we're always like prescriptive with our advice in that regard, because we're like, this could happen or that could happen. I know these are what your goals and objectives are, but you've got to be aware of all these things. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of good faith in the Geelong profession when you're dealing with lawyers that personally. You can have that good faith, or just pick up the phone and really find out where they're at, and just have those conversations. Say, hey, this is where my client sits. Where does your client sit on this?
Yeah.
You don't get that from Melbourne law firms, and they sort of hide behind the corporate veil, especially when they're working for a big brand. There's no personal stigma against them, whereas everything we do, we stand behind. Like, I've hired my wife recently as the office manager. She's been in law as long as I have. I actually say now she's the boss.
she is the boss.
I was to go,
I've
and the
seen the
people,
way she's spoken to you.
yeah. And people, you have people used to say, "Oh, is your wife a lawyer?" I go, no, but she still wins all the arguments, right? Like, just because I'm a lawyer doesn't mean I'll win all the bloody arguments at home. That's all completely different context, and it's interesting, the dichotomy, because we don't bring work home.
Yeah,
Like,
love
we
that.
don't talk
That's
about
great.
work at home because we're more worried about being parents for the kids. There's so much more emotional maturity now in our generation of that childhood trauma and how we're trying to resolve that. I think we're one of the first generations that are now trying to resolve that for our children, in terms of, because I hear my mum come out of my mouth all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I said to my oldest daughter once, I'm like, "Well, you think this is a hotel? You get your clothes washed, your dishes, you get dinner cooked," and then my daughter around, she goes, "No, you think this is a hotel? I'm washing your dishes." And I was like, okay, so this is what my mum used to hear. Like, this is me coming back at me. Like, this is exactly the
I
same.
felt exactly the same way when I moved out of home with my roommate. So like telling them off, I'm like, oh, I sound like my dad.
Yeah.
This is like terrible.
Yeah, you get these little mannerisms. Like, for example, mum was an EA to a massive shipping company, and she used to do 115 words a minute untouched typing. So I'd always map to that. And when you're starting out your career as a paralegal, all you need is 45 words, and I was going at 70. Highest I can go is 90 words a minute. Was never able to. But you always try and supersede your parents.
Your parents, yeah.
What are you trying to do? Which, like, do you always see yourselves in real estate for life, or do you see you guys mix? Like, do you have a side hustle? Do you have anything else that you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think like not forever, like selling forever, like 6 days a week. Do love it, but I think for me to do that forever, I just don't think that'll be for me. And like that whole thing, like you say, you're working with your wife now, it's like it is all consuming, and like I do love that about that. But there's something when you have to take work home with you with real estate. So I think just selling is not forever. On your point even before, what you're saying about like taking it home with you, my cousin and his wife, they're both teachers. So they work at different schools, but they have a rule that it's got to be an 8 out of 10. So because otherwise they talk about teaching all the time. So if they've got a story, before they go tell a story, they go, "Is it an 8 out of 10?"
Yeah.
So it's like, so you're not talking about it all the time. So bring that back to real estate. I'm like, I just talk all the time. Like that's all. Like I just love real estate and do it, but for me to do it forever, I think just all consuming. So there'll be some other stuff. Don't know what that is yet, but I'm sure I want to do something.
We've got that. Like, I'll start.
That's so good.
I'll
Love that.
start the story, and I'll be like, is it okay if I share something from work?
That's so good.
And then I'm like,
Yeah.
if she's not in the headspace, she's like, because I understand there's a lot of vicarious trauma in what I do and the stress I take on. And then if I just dump on her, I'm literally dumping on her. And then she
Yeah.
takes it on as an empath. She'll like actually take on my stress. And I've seen it. And I'm like, okay, now now that we've identified that I'm just yap, ADHD styles, like, hey, guess what happened today? Like, I've actually, like, I try and get to the door and go, all right, now you're a father. Like, you're not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Now you've got to be that parent for the kids. You can't just go doom scrolling on nothing. Like, you've got to come home and just be present for the kids. And you know, different commitments take me away from that. And I always feel guilty not having that father in my life. I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I'm there for them, especially with having 2 girls and a boy. I'm like, well, number one, I have to teach my son he's got to respect women and can't raise his hands at his sisters or anyone else. And sometimes when he gives it to his mum, I'm like, you can't. I take him to his room and I'm like, mate, you cannot talk to your mother like that. That is completely unacceptable. But then with my oldest daughters, I'm like, they have to learn it's so hard in this world to make it successful as a woman that they need to work nearly twice as hard. And so my oldest daughter's now saying she either wants to do economics or law. And I'm like, no, please don't. Do not become a lawyer. How do you find a lot of misogyny or narcissism in the industry?
I feel like I almost like ignorance is bliss a little bit probably with it. Like I kind of go in with, just the mentality that that's not an option to be kind of, I guess judged differently based on that. And I actually think I actually take an opposite take on it. I'm like in real estate, I think it's actually advantageous to be a woman because often we'll have potentially more empathy or we're more in tune emotionally with, you know, certain situations. And depending on the client, some are going to want to work with a male and some are going to want a female, I think. A lot of the time we actually go with a male and a female for that reason that we can kind of see who gels the best and then whoever does, we kind of let them roll with it. Because I find like if there is, like we were sort of saying before, like a potential DV like situation where the woman is a single mum, like she might have had an experience with her ex-partner that's not so great and she just wants to be able to talk to a woman. I find it actually quite good. Like, I haven't really run into any barriers with it. So, and I think like probably the demographic of 3217 is also a lot of younger couples and it's a lot of growing families. So the clientele,
not like that anymore.
It's not, so old-fashioned. I kind of take maybe that ignorance is bliss / it's good for me.
When I was in family law, I worked out how, with this analogy, how lawyers are like dogs. Because what would happen? I know, it's funny. I'm a lawyer, right? But you know how dogs match the personalities of their owners, right? Like people will find the lawyer that's the barking dog. That's their personality, right? They will call around, like you said, until they gel with that lawyer. You go, well, this is the right lawyer for me. And I've acted like I choose my retainers. Like I don't just take on every retainer that comes past my desk. Like that's part of the reason why I'm doing an obligation-free consult, because I'm not just finding out what you want to hire me for. I'm interviewing you to see where your moral compass is. Because if you're now telling me you want to do things that are going to affect your family law matter that aren't ethical, then I'm dropping you because that doesn't align with my morals and ethics and values in personal life. So it's difficult as a professional because as a solicitor, you're taught to be independent and to act in the client's best interest. The client's best interest is subjective per client, you know, so you're right. People will find the person that they gel with the most. And when I get lawyers on the other side, I can pick out whether they're dogs. And I'm just like, it's terrible. How do you find it? I know you
about women in.
No.
I'll ask you that question. I was going to say, because our biggest writer in
how do you find it being young?
Woman.
But how do you find it? How do you find it being young? Like I guess being for you, young, it's the age demographic. Like
I haven't actually ran into a problem with being young. Where I was originally doing real estate, that was probably the biggest barrier in moving from property management to sales. And they were saying, oh look, you know, you're probably not at the age where we want you to be in sales. People won't take you seriously and whatnot. But I think coming to Geelong, people are a bit more open to it, and I probably don't quite look 21. I like to think that, but maybe if I grow out facial hair, but.
I was going to say, if you grow a mohawk,
just say please.
If you
I had one for a bit. Kurt must have got inspired by me. No, but I think going in and just following the process, knowing the market, coming in confident, speaking with conviction. People sort of overlook the age thing and they go, "This guy knows what he's talking about," and just run with that.
100%. I think as well, like while we're in, again, like I roll in seasons, while we're in this season of life where we all don't have kids to worry about and all that sort of thing, like we can give probably more time after hours, and that's probably how the sell against someone who maybe is a bit more of like an old-fashioned type business hours agent potentially.
Yeah. I think you're right in terms of women having the capacity to have more empathy, having a family law.
Saying that in a room of 3
And
guys.
yeah, well, I always say the world after having kids, you guys will realize the world's backwards, right? Like men should not be running this world. Like in family law, I'd look at the family laws. I'm like, none of them have got kids. And I asked one of the family lawyers once while I was at legal aid, I'm like, no one's got kids. How can you want to be a family lawyer? Like, oh, well, we're independent. But for me, it's like, well, how do you have empathy for what your client's going through if you don't have that lived experience? And that's that's family law, very different to selling a house, right? But I see in my profession, women have way more patience and empathy than in terms of transactions and caring for the client. Than just being purely transactional. So it is an important skill to have. And if I go back to, and I'm going off the rail here, to ancient Egyptian times, the blokes, I'm serious, the blokes you had, and we won't post much, but the blokes you had like the headdresses, you know, the statues with the headdresses, the old blokes who were then worshipped because they had both that empathetic and effeminate side. So if you had the headdress and had a statue as a male, you had an effeminate side. So it was.
I didn't realize you were that old. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on the Stay Frosty podcast, Seb, Bella, and Curtis. Appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for having us.